Hey everyone, it's Jessie G here. Welcome back to another episode of Jessie's Hangout. This is episode number 11. welcome. Today's episode is a true crime episode, as you can tell from the title of today's episode of Jessie's Hangout. Um, we are going to be talking about the infamous serial killer Ted Bundy. And before we get into today's episode, if you are new to the channel and you happen to come across this episode and you are interested in the type of content that I create for this channel, hit that red subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll be notified as to when I upload videos. Please give this video this episode, today's show episode, a thumbs up. Also, be positive in the comments. Don't be rude or cruel to each other in the comments. I do ask of you of that. Just want to put that out there in the universe. Also, please don't forget to pause after the intro and read the opening credits, the copyright disclaimer, and the trigger warning before you listen or watch today's episode. Please, I can't say that enough. I try to keep those in there as much as I can, to make all of my videos as safe as I possibly can. So please take that into consideration before you watch today's episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, also, I almost forgot. Airhead Jessie G here. If you haven't already, or you don't know this already, I probably mentioned this in my last episode of Jessie's Hangout where I talked about Madame Dubarry. Was episode 10 of Jessie's Hangout. Um, I talked about her, and I also mentioned that if you haven't already, head on over to my second channel, The Free Gossip Drop, and subscribe and hit that notification bell on that channel and show the first episode of The Free Gossip Drop some love. I put a lot into that. I was very nervous, so to speak, so um, please go check it out. Show that some love. Show that channel some love. I did leave the 8 episodes of Jessie's Hangout over there, and also one of my old Q&As over there. So you guys are more than welcome to binge watch those, because um, those 8 episodes of Jesse's Hangout is part of the first season of Jesse's Hangout, before I moved them to my main channel. So feel free to go watch those over there, and also show the Free Gossip Drop see episode number 1 some love. And I can't wait to do shorts on that channel as well, so stay tuned for those. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode topic. Ted Bundy was born Theodore Robert Bundy on November the 24th, 1946. His mother, Eleanor Caldwell, born to his mother, Eleanor Caldwell. She was born in 1924 to Samuel Caldwell and Eleanor Caldwell, born in 1895 on February the 6th, and she died on April the 25th, 1971. Ted lived with his grandparents most of his childhood with his mother and her siblings. Um, he lived there for, I think, I want to say about the first 3 years of his childhood. It could have been longer, but it was really rough when he was living with them. They weren't exactly the type of typical grandparents that you would normally have, and they weren't really the best parents to his mother either. Um, it was a really rough for the first couple of years of his life, and it really didn't help his mother was, or it didn't really help his own mother living in that situation, because she lived in a home for unwed mothers, and allegedly that's where she had Ted Bundy at. And she went by Louise, which was her middle name. So her full name is Eleanor Louise Caldwell, but she did end up changing her last name eventually, to Eleanor Louise Bundy, or her other maiden name before that, so to speak, if that makes sense. Um, she lived in that house for a while. She went by her middle name, and it when she went home, allegedly, from what I read, she told her parents what she was doing, because she was urged to give Ted Bundy up for adoption because she was so young when she had Ted. And it wasn't until Samuel her father demanded her to go bring that boy back home, and she did, and that's when they lived with them for a while. Um, Ted Bundy's childhood was really rough. He had a really rough start with life. He didn't really fit in with the kids his age. He didn't really wasn't able to do much. He really didn't finish much. He just had so much trouble in life. And it wasn't until he got into his teen years when he got in trouble with the law twice for burglary, and it was on his record for a while until they mistakenly shouldn't have expunged it when he was 18. They basically took it off his record. So basically, that was one of many reasons why they couldn't really pinpoint the fact that Ted Bundy would be the person that committed the murders that was committed, and among the fact of his personality. But it was also known that Ted Bundy was also known for stealing a lot of things during his time with his longtime girlfriend, that we'll be talking about in this episode as well. So there's some red flags there that should kind of give you somewhat of an idea as to who Ted Bundy was before the murders. Um, after Ted Bundy graduated high school in 1965, Ted went to the University of Puget Sounds, if I'm saying it right, for 1 year before he transferred to University of Washington State, where he studied Chinese, and that's when he met his first girlfriend, um, in 1967, Diane Edwards, a student of the university. She was uh, a student at the university like Ted was. They met there, supposedly. During that time, he was dating Edwards. He ended up dropping out of college sometime in the early 1968. Um, Ted Bundy worked for many places. He volunteered. He kind of just did things here and there. And when Edwards graduated college, she moved to San Francisco, California, and Bundy kind of visited her back and forth, and their relationship just kind of slowly dwindled as it went. And Edwards kind of became really frustrated with him, and it wasn't it and it ended on a very bad sour note. Um, she basically kind of moved back home and was frustrated, and when she told people, or allegedly told people, that the reason why she ended their relationship was the fact that his immaturity and lack of adaptation or yeah, adaptation or something like that. Basically, it was his incapabilities to not commit to something, and able to commit to something, or able to finish something, and it kind of made her frustrated, among other things, of course. Um, Being devastated by the breakup and it hitting him hard, Ted Bundy went to Colorado. Then he traveled further east, where he visited Arkansas, and then went to Philadelphia, where he enrolled at a semester at Temple University. Um, it was during the fall of 1969 when Ted met his longtime girlfriend, that they dated for 5 to 6 years, Elizabeth Kendall. Um, she was a young single mother to her daughter from a previous marriage. Molly Kendall, basically from her first marriage. A little bit about Elizabeth. She lived in, I think it was Utah. She lived in Utah like Bundy used to live. And she was kind of in like this very religious Mormon family, and um, she just had a hard time fitting in with people. She just struggled with things in life like normal young people do, and it just she tried to marry somebody. She tried to be in a relationship with someone, and because of the fact that he was immature and just liked to do party and just liked to be for himself, she just couldn't handle it, and she and her daughter Molly moved to Seattle, Washington, in 1969, and she got a job at the university being a secretary, and she just kind of made a life for herself. And it wasn't until that time she went out dancing with a friend, and uh, he ended up asking her to dance, allegedly, and they ended up dancing once, and then she kind of waited to see if he would again, but he never did. So she went over and talked to him. She basically kind of made the first move, and then she doesn't normally bring guys home, but she ended up letting Bundy drive her home, and he ended up staying, and she ended up waking up the next morning to find Molly up and him making breakfast. So she was just kind of bedazzled by this guy. She just talked about him. And she talked about him to her colleagues, and she was just like head over heels for Ted Bundy, you know. And they dated for about 5 to 6 years, and it wasn't until sometime in 1974, when Molly was around the age of 10, um, he finally broke off contact with everybody, and he just kind of went off in the deep end, and that's when the series of murders started. And when the series of everything started to unfold and turned upside down and did what it did. And he was like in his 20s when Bundy was pulled over by a highway patrolman in 1975. Um, when he was pulled over, there was all sorts of things that were found in his car, anywhere from a ski mask to a pantyhose mask, to ice pick to crowbar, all sorts of things. It was really bizarre and scary. And the police officer that pulled him over, he knew something wasn't right about this guy, and he had every right to feel that way because there really wasn't. And it wasn't long before they connected Ted Bundy to the missing women and to the mysterious to the murder cases of several other women as well. Um, and his murder spree lasted from 1974 to 1975, and he committed anywhere from about 30 to 36 murders, and only 20 of those murders were confirmed and only identified, and the rest of them that he confessed to, the bodies were never found. They still remain missing to this day. But if it wasn't for Ted Bundy's confession, they wouldn't have known whether or not that these missing girls were dead or not. But they just never found the body. Um, Ted Bundy escaped from Florida State Prison, or from the prisons that he was in, 4 times. Twice in June of 1977, once on December the 30th, 1977, on that same year, and finally on February the 15th, 1978 was his last and final time that he escaped. And that's when all the trials started, even during the times that he escaped. That was during the trials, and it wasn't until 1976 they found him guilty and sentenced him 1 to 15 years or so in prison, and that was his first verdict. And um, and it wasn't until the 1979 to 1970 something to 1980s, um, that was when he was given the 2 counts, or the 2 death sentence, basically, and he was accused of several murders, aggravated first degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, and several charges of burglary. Um, and it wasn't until one of the trials during the 1980s that he met his first wife, Carol Ann Boone, if I'm saying her name right. She basically would show up to his trials. She was basically what people would kind of like to call a groupie of some sort, but she would show up to his trials. She was so mesmerized in Ted Bundy that she was so convinced that he was innocent of the murders that were committed. She was so intensely involved in it that she was so put under a spell that she didn't realize what he really was until further into their marriage, which I'll talk about that. Um, he did end up marrying her. They ended up having a daughter, Rose Bundy, in 1981. And it wasn't until uh, 1986, about somewhere about 2 or 3 years before his death, um, she divorced Ted Bundy. I guess she just finally, from what I hear, she finally just figured out that this man was a master manipulator, and just really just he had a lot of issues. She basically saw Ted Bundy for what he really was, and it's really sad. She did have a son. I don't know if it was before she met Bundy or after she divorced Bundy and found somebody else or something. I don't know the logistics or the information of that, so there's that. She did end up moving away, I think, before or after Bundy's death, and she ended up passing away in a retirement home in 2018. Um, on January the 24th, 1988, at 7:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday, Ted Bundy was executed for the murders that he committed, and um, it was said that after he was pronounced dead, that there was a witness that came out and shook his hands in the air to signal that Ted Bundy was gone. And it was just like a huge circus. It was really bad. Um, People were just really crazy. Um, Ted Bundy was one of 14 notorious serial killers of the 1970s. During that time, um, he was and he was also the top 10 most wanted serial killers when he escaped the 4 times that he did, and even I think before that too. Um, his 1968 Volkswagen is now in the museum, where all criminals' belongings or cars or stuff are on display, for everybody to see. So there was that. And his house and his childhood house and the house that he lived in from 1974 to 1975 still stands. There's a little more informational tidbits that are going through at the moment. But yeah, that was just really crazy. And if you stayed through the end of this, you will see after I'm done babbling away that I made a little kind of memorial or memory for the victims that survived Ted Bundy's awful attacks and that were killed by Ted Bundy, and ones that were missing and their bodies never found. So I hope you guys will take the time to see that, read it, and I hope you guys got a lot from today's episode. I hope you guys learned a lot about this notorious serial killer of the 1970s. It was pretty brutal and really crazy time in that life to be a young woman. So there was that. But anyways, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell as well so you'll be notified as to when I upload Jessie's Hangout episodes, 12 Facts, and Gaming with Jessie here and there. Also, don't forget to check the description box out where all my social media are listed, as well as my second channel, The Free Gossip Drop. Go check that out. I also list my equipment and all the apps that I use to create Jessie's Hangout with, and the 12 Facts and Gaming with Jessie as well. And I hope you guys have an awesome afternoon or evening wherever you're watching this from, and I will see you guys in my next episode later.